Well, the church's role is, as it always is, to bear witness to the love of God in Christ. You can't do that at this day and time without talking about the greatest existential threat to the human race.
Well, we set up Operation Noah because there just wasn't the activity in the church, I think, to respond to climate change. I think people didn't get how serious it was, how urgent it was.
And there was no civil movement, if you like, to take action on climate change.
So at that time, the idea of Operation Noah was in part to really focus on climate change as opposed to the wide range of very important other environmental issues.
We just felt the church had a role to play, a huge role to play.
We started Operation Noah really with just the title because, you know, drawing on the story of Noah, it's an operation, it's got to be of military scale.
We wanted to be ambitious and make the biggest splash we could.
When we first started, our aim was to have zero carbon Britain by 2030.
Part of the remit we set out was to lobby politically or to work with politicians and to also make the political space for politicians to inhabit so that they could be bolder.
I remember the moment when we shifted to the divestment campaign was we had a board meeting and Michael Northcott, the theologian and author, wasn't Zooming, he was in a conference call, he was on the phone, and he said, because until that point we were just a small organisation pushing the government, and amongst many organisations, and he said, look, we need to get the church to be prophetic. And for the church to be prophetic and speak about climate change, it needs to get its house in order.
If we can't entrust the governments to act as we hope they responsibly should do, well, we could take a lead ourselves.
There are many ways in which churches can respond to the climate crisis, and churches have investments which they could use as part of their mission, as part of their response. One of the highlights of the divestment campaign was the 40 Days and 40 Dioceses campaign, in which we asked local campaigners to pray for their diocese to divest from oil and gas companies. So each day we posted on our social media, so on Twitter as was then, on Facebook, a prayer by a member of each diocese saying, we are praying for our diocese. And it was great to see several dioceses make divestment commitments.
And it was just like seeing the dominoes fall, one after another. And that was unexpected. We knew some would, but we didn't expect that kind of response. Well, I'm sure the biggest highlight was when the national investing bodies of the Church of England, both the church commissioners and the pensions board, divested. That was a big moment. We've been working toward that for a long time.
It succeeded in working along its two major planks. Divestment, obviously very key, and the other is a more broad educational focus into the churches. One of the areas in which that became particularly key was in the run-up to the Paris COP, when Operation Noah was able to get some funding to commission a piece of theatre. The team at Riding Lights grasped the urgency of climate change and then used their creative skills to produce this piece of theatre that toured the whole country. Yeah, and it was a very successful campaign. In the couple of years before I came off the board, and Bright Now was proving to be hugely successful, but as churches and congregations took their money out of fossil fuels, they divested in response to that campaign. The next question was, well, what should we be investing in?
So we're interested in all the church's assets and how they can use those for the benefit of the climate. So as well as churches' financial investments, we know that some churches own a lot of land, and that land can be used for the benefit of climate, but it can also be the source of quite significant emissions.
We want to invest in what is right for the church and not just look at this as an investment portfolio to maximise.
The weight of the investments of the churches is significant, it's huge.
The church can be bold. It can not just think, what can little old we do in this sort of enormous financial market?
The Green Investment Declaration is an initiative from Operation Noah and the Just Money movement, encouraging churches to invest in solutions that combat the climate crisis.
Just as the URC's decision to divest actually ended up levering in 10 times more holdings to be fossil fuel free, if the church, which has significant resources, can help to actually lever in significant resources from other organisations, then the impact for scale could be huge.
My message to the church of all denominations, the Church Catholic, if you will, is to capture a sense of the urgency. We are at a critical moment. But we need to have a message of hope. We believe in a God who brings life out of death. We believe in a God of resurrection. So while it's a critical moment, it's not a moment for despair. It's a moment of hope.